Hello, everybody, and welcome back to The Dagger. It has been too long. I think the last episode was a March Madness preview with Dylan, who unfortunately cannot be here today. But I'm joined with my lovely co host, Rajan Rao, and we're here to discuss the NBA playoffs. Of course, we've certainly been watching all of it, but we haven't been able to discuss it here on the pod. But we have just concluded one of the greatest NBA playoff series in recent memory between the Spurs and Thunder, the Western Conference Finals. And this Wednesday, June 3rd at 8:30 is the first game between the Spurs and the Knicks, which is one of the most anticipated finals in recent memory as well. How excited are you for the finals, Rajan, and what other series might it compare to like finals in the past?
Well, first of all, hello everybody. I'm very excited to be back.
Yeah,
Um, this is going to be great basketball. I think that this is obviously comparable to the Warriors and the Cavs, like that era of you're not really sure who's going to win. I feel like we all, when we're watching the OKC versus Spurs series, can agree that like the winner of that is probably going to win the finals. And I remember thinking if OKC gets there, they will have no problem handling the Knicks for sure. And now that the Spurs just put them to shame, not the shame, but they handled them in Game 7, it's almost it still feels like it's anybody's game. I know that at some point in the series around Game 5 thought if the Spurs somehow pull this out, it's not going to be a cakewalk for them to go to New York and have to play in the Garden for 3 of the games if it goes to a Game 7. So all that to say, I think it's not going to be an easy 4-0 or a Spurs in 5 situation. Both teams seem incredibly motivated, and I think we're setting ourselves up for some great basketball. So
I agree. We'll talk about the finals in a little bit and the context behind it and some of our predictions. But before that, let's talk about the game from Saturday night, Spurs Thunder Game 7. And of course, we might include some comments from previous games as well. But this was one of the most anticipated games of the year. I think it turned out exactly as we could have hoped. Of course, Game 1 in the series was an absolute classic with the double overtime and the Wemby 3, but this was very close as well. And games 2 through 6 all were entertaining, but ended up being almost blowouts at the end. And so we got what we were hoping for, though, and the series was truly incredible. Let's start with the Spurs, the winners. Putting this team in context is extremely difficult to do, right? Their big three, if you can include Harper instead of Fox. I know that Harper comes off the bench, but if you think about their young core, you have Victor Wembanyama, a third-year player, Stephon Castle, a second-year player, and Dylan Harper, a rookie. And the three of them are the young core leading this team to the NBA Finals, of course, joined by De'Aaron Fox, and one of the most accurately and like perfectly built supporting cast that we've seen in the league as of recently, with Vassell, Champagny, Keldon Johnson, Carter Bryant, who was also a rookie, and Luke Cornett. And so that like 9-man rotation, pretty much tied with the Thunders, is like the tightest rotation that we have in the NBA. And I guess we can start with just talking about Wemby. I mean, we're not saying anything shocking when we say that Wemby is truly unfathomably good and like,
generational even.
yeah, generational. And the word generational gets thrown out a lot. Like, I don't like using the word generational to talk about a guy like Cooper Flag or whatever, right? But this guy, Victor Wembanyama, there's literally nobody else even remotely close to what he is. I think that even though he didn't win MVP this season and he was kind of neck and neck with Shea and Jokic, I think he's firmly the best player in the league now.
Yep.
That was probably true by the end of game one. And after winning the series, I think he'll be the favorite to win MVP next season. I think he'll probably win Finals MVP, of course, because I think the Spurs will win the Finals. But yeah, what did you think of Wemby during the series?
It was just I mean, the first thing was watching Game 1. He hits the three from almost the same spot that Steph did
Right, exactly.
to send OKC home. That was the year. That was the 73-9 year, right? That was the year that before KD joined.
Yeah, that was. Yep.
So I mean, it's just ridiculous. And I remember we were talking about it as the game was happening because you were like, he's the best player in the league now. And at first I was like, overshit. Like, and I tried to like, I had a thought that like he could be the most talented, but not the best. There was some kind of thing that's all been put to rest. When he is playing at his best, there is literally nothing opposing defenses can do. And we saw what happened in games 2 and 3 when and 5 when OKC started to have an answer for him by being more physical with Hartenstein and getting the offense involved more around him and kicking it out. And the Thunder were knocking down threes in those games.
Right.
And so the momentum would start to swing. It felt like it was swinging. But then Wemby, like, I don't even know what happened because it's not like the Thunder stopped playing Hartenstein on him, but he just starts to dominate. And it's like there's literally no one can block his shot. He has the bag work of like a small forward slasher.
Right.
Like there's no way I should be seeing him hit 2 crossovers and then step back on a 3 over a 7-footer and then swish it.
Exactly.
What?
And then on the next play, he receives like an easy pass from Stefan, like right next to the basket, and he just slams it in because he's so flexible. And I think one of the greatest strengths about Wemby is he doesn't even need to touch the ball to completely influence the offense because if he takes 2 steps from the free throw line to the basket, he needs at least 2 or 3 defenders to crash on him to try to
They
stop
collapse.
any
Yeah.
chance. And then he gives opportunities to guys like Champagny and Vassell, who of course had great games throughout the series. And so that kind of gravity, that's just the general term to refer to something like that. The last player that had that significant level of gravity was Steph Curry, which was a completely different kind where he would obviously run circles around Dellavedova and whatnot. But this kind of paint gravity, we haven't really seen in a big man at this level in years. I mean, I think going all the way back to Shaq, but there have of course been many great big men since. But even guys like Jokic and Embiid, Kevin Garnett, Dirk, like they
They don't
didn't.
demand the same attention
They
that
can't.
he
Yeah,
does.
and
They can't.
exactly because Wemby, it's because of his wingspan and because he's so athletic and so versatile. Again, truly alien like. But yeah, and I agree with you. In the games where they did neutralize Wemby, they definitely got a lot more physical on him. I don't think that we should spend any time here talking about the refing. We're done with the discourse. It's not worth having the conversation. But um, in those games, of course, the Spurs supporting cast wasn't able to knock down as many shots, and I think Wemby too can have weak points in different contexts. And but overall, when he's on, he clearly carries his team to victory, and it was just truly a gift to see.
And also worth mentioning these weak points. I mean, he is also only in his 3rd year. The
Right,
guy is 22, maybe
he
23.
is 22, and I don't know how he improves defensively because he's already the best defender. I think he will, but his offense clearly there's still ways for him to prove, and that is what is so scary, right?
Right,
Um,
right. Because if
like
he's already playing at this almost MVP caliber,
yeah,
2nd place, 3rd place MVP caliber right now, he just beat
right.
the what we thought was going to be the dynasty for the next 5 years in the West.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and they very well still could be. I mean, there's no telling what the Thunder are going to do next year. But
We have no idea. I would
yeah,
say one thing that I thought in the games where Wemby was a bit weaker was his shot selection because
hmm
it's really easy to look at that dude and say, why is he not posting up on every play, right? That's not his style. I also don't think he's necessarily like super strong to be able to do that against small, like stout wing defenders who can hold their own. And of course, the Thunder are comprised like entirely of those guys. Not Chet though, not Chet, and we'll talk about Chet in a moment. But Wemby, of course, took some like odd looking threes and definitely like some bad looks on the wings. But if Wemby over the next season or say summer improves where he chooses to take shots and he becomes a better passer, I don't have expectations for him to start throwing Jokic type passes. But just imagine that he develops the kind of IQ that approaches like, the I don't know, higher level like point guards or like big men like even Embiid. I think when he's in a setting to play make can be a pretty good passer. And Wemby is already on his way there, but still has so far to go. So it's just truly incredible. And then
If it,
oh,
if oh sorry, I was gonna say it just feels like the only thing that's holding him back offensively, like you said, is the shot selection. I think that's just immaturity. Like he gets
exactly.
I could see he getting excited when he starts making a couple and he starts taking a three with 20 seconds left on the shot clock. And it's not just him that's guilty of doing that on the Spurs. I've seen
Right.
Steph Castle do it. I've seen Carter Bryant do it. I've seen Dylan Harper do it. And the thing is, they just try so hard that when they're getting in their flow, sometimes that happens as a byproduct.
Right.
I mean,
And when half of your roster, like you just said, is under 23 years of age, that's what you expect from them. So,
right,
um,
right,
on the note for like Castle and Harper, excellent series. Of course, Harper looked so unbelievably mature. He like soloed Shea multiple times and throughout the games. In Game 7, he hit a three over Shea in the fourth quarter, which was just ridiculous to have that level of confidence. And I have I'm fully on board with the train that Harper is going to be like an All NBA first team type of player. I think he'll never win an MVP, but he's legitimate. And again, I'm not going to use the word generational, but he's like a high level All Star. And Castle, meanwhile, is going to be a strong All Star too. Maybe might not reach the ceiling of Harper, but um, again, that's all speculative, so I'm not trying to like draw super intense conclusions. But they all played extremely well. The only thing I didn't like about Castle was the first couple games where he had 20 turnovers over the first two games and was unbelievably reckless.
yeah.
And uh, obviously, those games Fox did not play. And then as soon as De'Aaron stepped into more of the playmaking role, then I don't remember how many turnovers. I think it was 12
I think it
turnovers.
halved.
Yeah,
Compare it, yeah,
it was 12 turnovers over the last five games versus 20 in the first two. And so, and multiple of those were in game four, like a large or game seven. I'm sorry, a large percentage were in game seven. And so, Castle is still improving on that end. But the one thing I will say about Castle, he's the best Shea defender I've ever seen. He
yeah.
neutralized him unbelievably well.
And he's so good at not reaching in to do it, but
Exactly.
just using like I'll see him go like this and then move with just his hips and his lower body,
Right.
and he's bumping, but he's not like reaching in and fouling. And he's I think he's my favorite player. I love Wemby. I love everything that he does, but I love there's just such an electricity. Steph Castle kind of reminds me of the way Ants plays
Oh,
with like
yeah.
a ferocity and a high motor where it's just like, dude, this guy could explode out of nowhere.
Yeah. He looks like he never gets tired. You're right. And
Yeah.
that kind of mentality is something that truly cannot be taught. Like how that guy is just looks angry and like looks like he is deserves to win. And he's fighting to win every single time. I agree with you. I think that it was a crime that he was literally the first guy off the list to make the all defensive second team. He absolutely deserved it. And this series certainly proved that. I think it'll be probably first team next year, but like he defends Shea better than players like Derek White, for example, or like other guys that I can imagine. Like I think he defends him better than Scotty Barnes and OG Anunoby. He just shifts so well, and there were some times where he got caught in a little bait where Shea would push into him, but um, he played great. And so we'll
Yeah.
talk about the matchup with Brunson for the finals because that might be the single most important player matchup. And,
Absolutely.
and I have nothing but positive things to say about Champagny and Vassell and Keldon Johnson. They all had weak games and strong games. Champagny had 20 points in Game 7, like a Game 6 Clay type
Six
of
for 10.
performance.
Right,
I
right, right,
know,
right.
right? That's unbelievable to. And again, they can't win that game unless you have role players making shots like that. And of course, my favorite play of the game, blocked by Cornette. We all got flashbacks of 2016.
Generationally. Yeah. Oh,
And
sorry. Let me stop throwing the word around. But that single-handedly changed the momentum of the game. At
it
that
did.
point, the Spurs were starting, or not the Spurs, the Thunder were starting to come back a little bit, and they had got up to within 6, I think.
I think they were up four in that play, and it was
Yeah.
because Wemby had five fouls, right? And it was
Right.
such a huge turning point of like Wemby committed a really dumb foul. Now he has to come out during the fourth quarter. They're
There's
gonna
8
go on.
minutes left at
They're
this
gonna
point,
go on
too.
a
It's not like,
run.
yeah.
We got
Yep.
Cornette
Yep.
coming in at like 8 or 7 minutes, and then he stuffs Hartenstein and then completely shifts it, and Wemby's able to come back in. Um, and yeah, so do we have anything else to say about the Spurs in this game?
Just that I also want to give a huge shout out to Carter Bryant. Like it's just so refreshing to see a team support someone who is so young and is trying. Like watching Mitch Johnson scream at him, and then he's like, he's tearing up a little bit, seeing the emotion of
Right.
how much he cares about the game. It's beautiful. The whole team and Vassell too. There were a good amount of possessions where Vassell was the guy that had to guard Shea, and
Right. Playing
he did
switches.
an
I agree.
admirable job. Like they all like locked him up. But I just want to give a shout out to Carter Bryant because that was inspiring. Inspiring.
Yeah, and Brian was a great defender, and he definitely took the advice, I think, and learned from it. And the other thing I forgot to say, it has to do exactly with that, with Wemby, of course. Him in tears after Game 7, talking about how much it meant to him and how much Game 7, like, he thought it was going to define, like, his legacy and his career. And I made, like, a brief little post about this, but I had just said, and I'll say here again, that being, like, an all-time great, I think you have to have some sort of like incredible emotion driving you, right? Because you can be one of the best players in the world through sheer practice, right? But the level that's going to motivate you to take over the entire league and like continue dominating after you've already reached the top is something that can only be achieved if you have a sort of personal inner desire to push farther than you ever could and be your best self, and you have some sort of emotion and passion tied to that. And that's why we have those unbelievably famous pictures of like LeBron and Jordan crying when they get their championships, right? And
Right.
those two are the greatest of all time. And Wemby in tears because of how much it means to him to take down the Thunder, and Chet, who he's like seen and played basketball against for a long time, and against SGA, who just stole the MVP from him in his eyes. Um, that kind of things can't be taught. I think that being on this team helps him so much because you have guys like Castle who are entering his mind and like inspiring him to be even better, and so they all make each other better, and
I
they're
haven't
going to be
seen a
really fun
player
to watch.
want it as much as he does in
Yeah,
a
he really
long
does.
time.
He really
Yeah.
does want it. Thank you, yeah, for saying that. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, there are examples of guys who I just don't think like I'm not going to sit here and say that Kevin Durant had an unsuccessful NBA career, but I just don't think that he ever truly like wanted it as much as a guy like Wemby or LeBron ever did. And
Right.
he's still obviously going to be in the Hall of Fame, and he won those titles with the Warriors. But since that area with the Warriors, I mean, what has been motivating him to push like that? So
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
okay, let's move on to the Thunder. And let's start with the fun stuff. All right, you
Okay.
you want to talk about Chet first?
Oh, we're doing great. Okay, yes.
Okay.
I said before we started this podcast that I think that was one of, if not the biggest playoff. I don't know. I can't. We use the term playoff riser when we're talking about someone like Dylan Harper, who completely turned on a corner on a dime and just showed out.
Right.
I don't know what playoff sinker. Maybe that's the right word to use. This was like more than a sinker. This guy like went through the earth in like a pothole, or not pothole, like a sinkhole, and went all the way through America to China. That's how bad he played. He's completely sunk. I mean, at first in game 1 and 2, Chet had some swagger. He still had some oomph. He still had some, I'm not going to let Wemby beat me. I'm still going to try my best. I don't remember which play it was, but I remember thinking when he caught the pass on like the low block, or maybe a couple feet outside the low block on the baseline, and he dropped the ball. Like he tried to catch it, and
Yeah.
it went between. This guy is broken. His spirit is like broken.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah,
That play was really representative because the entire game he had been scared to death of picking on Wemby. And that might have started from the moment where Wemby dunked on him in the first quarter, right? And but
that was
also
a ruthless dunk too. By the
it
way, that
was.
was like, yeah,
But also it was true all series. I'll just tell you how many points he scored each game. 8, 13, 14, 10, 16, 10, 4. And in all of the games he's ever played against Wembanyama, I saw this stat earlier today, he's averaged like 12 points a game. Again, this is an All NBA third team caliber level player who is,
And
of
supposedly
course,
the second best defender of the league.
yes. And again, I still think that that claim is fair, and he did play pretty great defense throughout the series, but he also is valuable to the team because of how much he can contribute to their offense as like a stretch four, right? And his ability to shoot threes, for example. Where was the 3-point shot in this game and in this series? It was literally nowhere. It's like he forgot that he was supposed to do that. And so at some point, playing him and Hartenstein almost became impossible because obviously neither of them are going to be able to shoot. And so it completely allows the Spurs defense to collapse with Wemby out there. And the Thunder have no chance of, no good spacing in that circumstance. But yeah, Chet in Game 7 was legitimately the worst I've ever seen from a star player. I pulled this from an article, but it says that uh, it's among the lowest scoring Game 7 performances ever recorded by an All NBA player. Jason Kidd once scored 0 points in 2004, and Holmgren is tied like right behind him with some other players. And so that's kind of the context that we're in. But
That's
he
ridiculous.
genuinely looked terrified, even though again he had some good blocks, and throughout the series he made decent defensive plays every now and then, and hit shots every now and then. It's just he was not at all the player that they needed him to be because he was so in his head, or Wemby was in his head, and he was so scared of the moment, which is kind of crazy because he was definitely, even though in the finals last year he dipped a little bit, he was still one of their best players, like very clearly, and so um, deservedly so. A lot of the blame goes to him.
Yeah, and I just looked. We just mentioned the 3-point shot, which is definitely one of the reasons why they're so versatile, is because so much of the pressure. This is very similar to Wemby. Shea is such a great driver. I mean, of course, I think sometimes some of the fouls that get called for him are a little wishy washy, but it's undeniable. Like there was a point in Game 7 where he missed 2 free throws in a row and then came back and scored like 7 or 8 straight. It was like that was like that's why my name's on the door type of performance.
Right.
I when Shea drives, everyone focuses on him, and that's why the Thunder are so lethal because all their role players like McCain, Jay Will, J Dub when he's
Mm-hmm.
healthy, they can all knock down threes. I just checked. Chet made 3 threes in all the entire series, three, and I think he attempted over 10. Like I think it was 12 or 13. That's as a
There you go.
stretch four or a five. I mean, come on. That
He was expected to make about two a game. I'd say that's what they needed from him.
right,
And yeah, with that level of like fear and just being unwilling to shoot, I'm it doesn't matter what kind of games their other players have. Those other players being like Case and Wallace, who had a great fourth quarter in Game 7 to attempt to pull them back.
right,
Jalen Williams, the big J Will, right? Who had to end up playing more of Chet's role in Game 7 than Chet did because
right.
J Will was put on Wemby more to defend and he took more shots and he played so much better than him. And that guy is making nowhere the amount of money as Chet, right? And
I was
then
gonna say, is Chet actually like is this $250 million contract like that's set to start this coming year, right?
yes.
Is there any chance that there's no way to take that away now, right?
No, the contract is already set in stone. And again, he's an all defense level player and still worth the money in a lot of ways. But we'll have a conversation in a minute about what the Thunder should do. Okay.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
I think that's most of the complaining about Chet. He was trash. Uh, let's talk positively about Shea. Um, of course, a lot of people like to hate on SGA. It's very trendy. It's been trendy for many years now. But Shea, in a do or die Game 7, dropped 35 points, 9 assists, 4 rebounds. You can tell the entire offense was running through him, like you mentioned, and he was still getting good looks for his teammates. He made some unbelievably difficult turnaround, fadeaway mid range jumpers on some of the best defenders in the world, like Castle, right? That just make you think, like, okay, that's what the MVP is, right? And
Right.
so, and again, he is the best player in the world for the last 2 years, and he had a game that he needed to. He had a much weaker game six. He had 15 points, and
Hmm.
he was getting a lot of fault for that. But he deserves absolutely, or not absolutely none, but like very little credit for this Thunder loss. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Do you have
He
anything for O'Shea?
he's just like, I also want to mention that at the free throw line, I think for the series he was over 95%, which is like
Right.
insane. That's just ridiculous. Like I mentioned the two that he missed in a row. My dad and I were shocked that we
Yeah.
just saw Shea miss two free throws. I think that might be one of the only times ever. I mean,
Probably.
he's just he's so pivotal when he's not in and Chet's not playing well, like he would happen this series, especially because J Dub is also out. Because if you watch the Thunder through the regular season and part of the playoff series, when Shea is not in, J Dub is kind of leading the offense and navigating things, or one of their other guards. Without Shea, it just felt lifeless. And he that I think that the MVP moment was when he went on that run of like 7 or 8 straight after missing the free throws, and it was like, okay, yeah, like I there's nothing you can do. I watched Steph Castle and Dylan Harper and Vassell literally stay with him for an entire play, all for him to hit the most insane fadeaway from damn near 3-point range. It's
Exactly.
like
And
there's not much you can do.
this season, I agree with the note. Even though J Dub was injured, clearly, like last season, for example, and the games where he played, he was so important to their offense. And the other player is A.J. Mitchell, who was out this game and was out most of the series. And so, without their second and third best offensive creator, Shea had that much more pressure on him, as well as say Jared McCain. He was supposed to help fulfill that role, and he scored, I think, like 12. He did an okay job, but Shea did pretty much everything he could. He just needed a better performance from Chet, and he just needed more shots to fall from guys like Caruso, who went 3 for 14. Obviously, it's a bad game, but I'm not too upset at Caruso, right? Because he at least took the shots. And
Right.
same goes for Dort. I don't think Dort should have played almost at all. I was very firm on like I'd be surprised if he played more than 12 minutes. He played 16, and I don't think he played. He played 4 minutes in the third quarter and none in the fourth. I don't think he or Chet should have touched the floor in the second half at all. But of course, hindsight is 2020, and um, yeah, I think that's pretty much it for the Thunder. So we can talk quickly about like what, or actually, we can do that in our segment for the reactions and stuff. Um, in terms of this, I have some notes on like their legacies. I think we already kind of hit on the impact the series has had on Wemby, Castle, and Harper, and about how the Spurs are just going up. And we'll talk about that more in a sec. For Shea, I don't think it should be dampened at all. I think he had an incredibly competitive series, and history will reflect that. In at least in the short term. In the long term, maybe people will start to forget it a little bit. And Chet, I don't know. This was on.
It's one of the worst ever. Really, really, really bad. I but well, I mean, not now he has a chance to prove it. Right now, he has a whole year to prove why he deserves that $250 million contract. Because if he plays anything like that again, it's clear that he's not built for the playoffs at all. He just doesn't
Right.
have it in him. Chet's a year older than Wemby, right? Like he's not the same.
Yeah, I think so.
So I mean, and again, I know 1 year of experience doesn't exactly make you a veteran, but you also did just win a championship last year. It's not like you're not used to the playoffs. It's not like you're not used to this type of environment. And you have the MVP as your leader, who's a couple years older than you, that's leading and guiding this whole team.
Okay.
At some point, it's going to have to, you know, there might have to be, I don't know if it means minutes reduction. It's kind of hard to say that to a person that just, right, like you said, rightfully so, is second in DPOY voting. But it's definitely, I mean, internet wise, people have just been dogging on Chet. It has been like
Yeah.
brutal.
If you see Wemby, Warner Brother. That's what the meme going around is. Um, okay, I'm now gonna give some takes that I wrote to Rajan, like purposely slightly hot takes, and I'll let him say first whether he thinks it's like an overreaction or underreaction. This all has to do with like the Thunder and Spurs, and then I can add my 2 cents as well. So let's start with this take. Either Chet or J Dub will not be on the Thunder next year. Do you agree with that, or do you think it's like an overreaction?
Honestly, I think I agree with it, and I'll tell you why. Sam Presti, like Shay said, has been an incredibly well-minded and well thought out GM who, and we've talked about this in previous pods where we're like one of their big other three top players besides Shea will probably be headed out the door at some point in the next 1 to 2 years to continue to create space for younger players with all their draft picks that they have to get them on smaller contracts instead of having to go over the aprons.
Right.
And I think obviously J-Dub did not really play well in game 6, but I mean, that's his injury, and he has been consistently a great player for them. I I don't know how realistic it is that Chet gets dealt this summer, but I could see the reason I say not an overreaction is because if we know anything about this Sam Presti guy, we know that he's active and he's looking to try and make the team better at whatever cost that may be. And if that means getting rid of Chet and he feels like that's the move now, I don't think that he'll be waiting and seeing. I think this is one of those situations where you say, do we really think that Chet's going to be able to improve? And furthermore, we have to also acknowledge that the Spurs are not going anywhere. Chet, it's
Exactly.
not like he's going to be able to beat Wemby next year. If he, I mean, Wemby is progressing at a rate that's insane. I don't know if there's any way. I saw a meme today, and it's like there's probably 200 people on the entire planet that have the size and athleticism of Chet. How unlucky do you have to be born in the same time as like a French dude who can do everything that you can do better?
Right. It takes away your whole personality. These are two unicorns, and one of them is ultra rare and ultra special, and the other one nobody cares about, right? But um, okay, yeah. So I agree with what you said. I think that there are like three perspectives you can take, right?
Okay.
The first perspective is the Thunder without two of their, you say, four best players, including AJ Mitchell and J Dub, went to Game 7 against potentially the eventual champions, the Spurs, and lost by single digits. And you can say that with more practice, more cohesion, with guys like McCain, for example, and like a healthier roster next season, they will be better than the Spurs. And you can put faith in them to say, and I don't think this would be rational, but you could say that their improvement as a team will be more significant than the Spurs' development of their young core. And again, with those guys being still like in their third year, for example, like next year, um, I don't think that's fair to say. But you could make that argument, and I don't blame you at all if you think that OKC it makes more sense for them to hold on to everybody because they shouldn't overreact. Case number two, this past season, the the Spurs beat the Thunder like four times in the regular season, including in the NBA Cup semifinal. And Sam Presti saw that and did nothing. He thought, we're still good enough. Technically, they traded for McCain at the deadline, but that honestly, I think, kind of like fell into their lap because the Sixers were trying to dump his salary. And that was obviously an excellent move by them. But there clearly was a need for something more significant if you were going to try to beat the Spurs in a playoff series. But of course, they came very close. They couldn't get the job done. Um, but you could say, okay, we need to make a slight adjustment. For example, we do need a more reliable additional offensive player, and we can beat Wemby with shooting. That's a perspective you can take. You can say, we don't need a Wemby stopper. We just need more role players who can shoot better. And they're already really close. But in this avenue would say, okay, let's trade Isaiah Joe or Lou Dort or somebody else who has a decent chunk of a salary but isn't contributing to our team a lot. For example, Aaron Wiggins or maybe even Hartenstein if they find the right fit. Uh, I think that this is the most reasonable thing for the Thunder to do. The best example of someone they can target is who I was uh, pining for in February, but Trey Murphy on the Pelicans is one of the best 3-point shooters in the league and is a pretty decent defender. And I think he would buy in perfectly with the Thunder culture. I think that a lot of teams are going to want to trade for him, frankly, but I don't know what the Pelicans are looking for him to get for him. Given like the Desmond Bain trade, they probably want at least a couple firsts, which the Thunder
Mm.
have. And the Thunder literally don't have roster spots to give to future first round picks, right? And so why not spend them?
I
Right?
mean, if that's going to get you closer to beating Wemby, then of course, because we know that the counter to Wemby is making him take bad shots because he's uncomfortable by the physicality displayed, and the Thunder aren't going to get rid of Hartenstein. So
That's why I agree with you. And so can you beat if Wemby is going to still continue being the best defender in the world? Can you beat him with shooting? Maybe. Then the third avenue is we need a Wemby stopper. And here, my issue with that is I don't think it's possible. I don't think there's a single person in the world that can successfully contain Wemby. I don't think come this time next year that he will have literally any kryptonite. And I know that this is like kind of glazed, but like I don't know any person in the world that might be able to successfully contain him. There are guys like strong wing defenders. Like I think in this finals, I'm going to talk about the OG Anunoby matchup. That guy is going to defend Wemby very well, right? But another guy, for example, Giannis. Giannis could, in theory, be a good Wemby defender, assuming that you're getting a healthy Giannis for all of the playoffs. And so, does it make sense for them to trade J Dub or Chet for Giannis, for example? I'm very worried about the offensive fit. Giannis and Shea are both like one man offenses, and they're both better with somebody who does the complete opposite thing as them. Giannis
right,
is better with a more defense heavy guard or small forward like Middleton and Holiday,
True Holiday.
who are both great shooters, right? And then Shea is better with like stretch players. Giannis is not a shooter. So how does that work? That kind of fit, right?
This feels like it'd be something similar to I mean, not exactly the same, but something similar to the Steph KD thing where KD takes the focal point of the offense as like the main ball scorer and Shea becomes more of a distributor. Not saying that Curry didn't shoot, but that to me, that's the only way that it would
Yeah.
work. There's no way. I don't
In
see
a
Giannis ever being
in a perfect
getting him.
world, but Shea is literally the MVP. He
Right.
would never take a step back. And
For a
he's not.
championship though, would he? You think he wouldn't?
No, I don't think his play style. He's not a good enough playmaker. I don't think to be like the right fit with Giannis. I don't think he ever
Mm,
will be.
mm.
And I think he's too good of a mid range scorer to like let that kind of happen.
Right. He's very efficient.
But you know who's a good fit next to Giannis? Chet. In a world where Chet is a good stretch four, that's actually a great fit because
Mm.
Giannis can kind of play the five sometimes, right? And they can be your two big men out there, and they can both defend the hell out of the paint. And then you don't have Chet clogging up on offense the paint or the low block for when Giannis wants good opportunities.
It gives
So
him an opportunity to shoot threes as well because Chet can do that more than Giannis can.
right, and so in a perfect world where Chet is back to his normal self, you never should trade Chet for Giannis. That's why I think the J Dub for Giannis idea is interesting because if you don't think that J Dub is going to be healthy ever again, depending on the severity of his hamstring soreness and whatever, then it might be a good investment. But I'm going to lean on the side of no. I don't like the offensive fit. I think that there's minor adjustments to be made. I don't think there's any answer to Wemby. I think you just have to try other solutions and pray for better health. And that's kind of
Try and outshoot him. Yeah.
yeah. Okay. We're going to take a quick break and then we'll be right back with the next take. All right, we're back. The next hot take. Rajan, do you think, and this is getting ahead of myself, do you think Wemby will get more rings than LeBron, which is 4? If you were just bet yes or no, it's an easy question.
Yeah. Real easy. Real easy, Ramsey. Yes.
Yes. Okay.
I'm not even going to explain.
That's fine. I'm going to lean no. I picked 4 on purpose because I think he's going to get 4. But one of my next hot takes is about the parity question, and so frankly, I don't know. It's so easy to assume that a team like the Spurs is going to be a dynasty, and frankly they have every sign pointed to the fact that they will be. But the last like 9 years of the league has convinced me that no team is as close to
But
being a
have the
dynasty as you think.
last 9 years ever had somebody like Wemby?
No, we haven't, and
The thing, yeah,
never, especially not some player at Wemby's level combined with Castle and Harper right next to him.
right, right, and the fact that they also have a pretty good draft situation going forward, right? They're not. I mean, they're not
Yeah,
the Spurs, but they have a pretty good. They have some
yeah, they
picks.
don't have like a treasure trove like this Thunder, but they have most of their own picks. So
I I I think that the point of contention would be LeBron was kind of perfectly built physically to last 22 years in the league. Is Wemby, obviously Wemby's not. I don't know if Wemby's career is going to last more than 15 years in terms of impact on his joints because he's just so much taller.
yeah,
But so the question is, do we think Wemby's going to get 5 rings in 15 years to beat the LeBron odds? Maybe that's a little bit far fetched, but I honestly think that they'll win this year, and honestly think they'll win next year. And even if that means Wemby in the years after that, I mean, he seems like the type of guy to be like Tim Duncan and spend his whole career in San Antonio. But it's very possible he could go somewhere
right.
else and go on a ring chasing thing. And genuinely, who is stopping Wemby?
I really hope that he does not do any sort of ring chasing.
Yeah.
The Spurs are literally never ever going to let him leave, unless they do something crazy to him. But okay, I do want to bring up another point about that, but I'll save it for the next one. Which is, um, the before that, we'll do this one where I got no team besides the Spurs and the Thunder will win the Western Conference in the next 5 years. That's saying that, like, for example, the Lakers with Luca, the Timberwolves with Ant, the Rockets. I don't think they're winning it, but like, say the Timberwolves and Lakers, I think that they're next. You're saying they don't even have a chance, even though Luca and Ant are clearly like the fourth and fifth best player in the league. Like,
I don't think they have it. Are they have their GMs shown any indication of creating a roster built around a single star and then great supporting cast that does what that guy can't do? No.
they're trying. Obviously, Shea and Wemby are both better than those two guys, but um, the Lakers are working on it. Their roster's kind of rough, but the Timberwolves is an excellent roster. But as we saw in that series against the Spurs, they lost in 6, I believe, and still they're definitely not as close to them as they think.
The only team that I could the only way the Timberwolves to me, okay, so firstly, I don't think the Lakers are. I think the Timberwolves are way closer than the Lakers are, like,
Okay,
to being the third team in this conversation about the Western Conference. I think the only way that Minnesota gets into the conversation of who's going to win the West is if they get rid of Julius Randle and get something back for him that's less selfish and less, frankly, lacking in the playoffs. I mean, I I just remember thinking that Julius Randle was just kind of a selfish.
nah,
It didn't feel selfish, but he seems he's ball dominant, but there's nothing really productive that happens when he's trying to post up and stuff. I don't like
yeah,
his game.
he's just one of those guys that will only ever be like the best player on a bad team, and
Right.
he doesn't really play winning basketball, especially alongside a guy like Ant, who like does everything right. And so I
It's
agree with
frustrating to see
you.
that with Nas Reed as well, and Jaden McDaniels and these other guys that really want to win. Like, it's
Yeah,
clear they want to win.
yeah.
So
I mean, again, Reed, McDaniel's, like even Gobert, I think that like they have a good roster, but unless they do some sort of trade to trade Randall for a significant upgrade or like just multiple pieces that fit much better, I don't know. Giannis, for example, like the Timberwolves are on the record of saying that they really tried to get Giannis. Like that would be fascinating, and that would actually be way better for the league because then you have three real contenders instead of Giannis joining one of those, say the Thunder, for example. But as
So
I
then,
already complained about the Giannis and Shea fit. I don't know as much
yeah.
about Ant. I think it's better with Ant, but
Do you? So then, do you? I'll flip it on you then. Do you think that anyone else will win the West? I'm leaning towards no. I don't want to say no because that's like a pretty bold statement for 5 years. I mean, for all we know, I hope this doesn't happen, but Wemby could get brutally injured because of his,
right.
and we don't know.
No, it's just that's the rational perspective to take. I don't know. I'm gonna lean yes. I actually am gonna lean yes more so than the Wemby rings question, but you never know. And in any circumstance, like any team can get lucky in the lottery. Not that the lottery odds have changed, and any like mediocre to bad team can jump up to first. Uh, Means that we could, for example, see like the Mavericks. Say the Mavericks finish like 10th next year, and then they get the first pick again, and then they have Cooper Flag and the next first pick, and then they make the finals like 2 years later, right? Like
Right.
you have no idea. So many teams are so far away, and like we like 4 or 5 years ago, say 4 years ago, the Spurs literally had none of their young core, and now here they are. So who's to say the league moves really
I
fast?
mean, that's a good point. We 4 or 5. I mean, even like let's just go back to 2019. If you asked me in 2019 if I thought the Warriors were going to be, I mean, they ended up getting back to the finals within 5 years from then. That's kind of a bad example, but you get my point. Like, I don't think anybody saw KD leaving as soon as they lost to Toronto. Or like I was not expecting any of that. Clay getting injured, and no one would have counted on the Suns making the finals 2 years after that. So,
Right.
okay, I'll get behind it then. I'll say yes that someone else will win, and I'm interested. I think that your Dallas thing might be the best way to go because I don't know how much Minnesota could get. I mean, they would have to send so much away to get rid of Randall and get Giannis, for example, or
Yeah.
someone star-studded on the East or wherever.
Yeah, Randall is like a bad contract objectively, and so you have to attach a lot of picks that they don't have. I don't think so. Uh, okay, the next take. Do you think overreaction or underreaction? The Thunder are actually farther from the Spurs than they think.
This is hard because again, how do you contain Wemby? Like we might
Right.
just be seeing a repeat of what happened this year every year, where the Thunder have a
Right. That's what
greatly
I'm
well
saying.
built.
If the Thunder make no significant adjustments and just rely on being healthier, is that never going to be enough? Because
It's never
Wemby
going
is
to
going
be
to be too
enough.
good.
He's gonna. I mean, we're just talking about Wemby right now. The jump that rookies to their sophomore season and then junior season make, and we've already clearly established Dylan Harper is a future first team All NBA player. He's gonna be otherworldly in 3 years, and he's gonna be playing with Wemby.
Right. I agree with you. I think it's a
Yeah,
proper reaction or like underreaction.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And then the final one is, do you think that this era of parity, of course, no repeat champion since the Warriors, is worse for the league than people think it is? And my argument there is like, you could say that the NBA's storylines were at its most interesting when we had Warriors Cavs for 4 years in a row. And of course, KD raining on the parade and making it like less fun for half of that wasn't ideal, but it still got some of the highest ratings of all time, and it was exciting to watch and care about, like a rivalry that blossomed. And so, even though we have individual like like intra conference rivalries, for example, like maybe we get more Spurs Thunder, or like Timberwolves Thunder has been pretty prevalent over the last few seasons. Um, is this lack of like consistent teams showing up in the finals bad for the league, or is it good?
It. I think for a pure NBA fan, it's good because an NBA fan that loves the game for what the game is and is not necessarily looking to be entertained the same way that a maybe more casual fan would be, um, they want to see what the best in store is that year, and they want to see a new riser take the next step as a team, as individuals. Like maybe Cooper Flagg takes the next big step, or I don't know, Anthony Edwards becomes the MVP next year, and then he leads this Timberwolves team in like a LeBron-esque way to the finals, where they don't have any other crazy stars. I mean, Gobert maybe, but like I think for a pure basketball fan, I enjoy seeing what's happening each year. Um, but you're right, the storyline of having two juggernauts and seeing who's going to dethrone them, and then if no one does that, it's the two heavyweights fighting in the finals. It's exciting. It's like who's going to do something different in the offseason to give the Warriors a run for their money, or in this case, the Spurs or the Thunder. Who's going to
Yeah,
give the Cade ever getting better, Cade led Pistons hopefully better, or maybe not Cavs, but the Knicks, right? Who's going to give them a run for their money if they were to establish themselves as the next dynasty?
right. Yeah. Um,
I
oh,
I
you
don't
can
know.
finish.
This one's actually impossible for me to pick.
Okay.
I'm completely split.
I have a couple thoughts. First of all, I just realized that when we were talking about the teams that are up against the Thunder and Spurs, we did not mention the Nuggets. So that's completely on me. But I'm not gonna lie, like I am starting to believe that their window is shut, which makes me very scared to say because I still think Jokic is one of the top like 20 players of all time, and his team the way he like I don't know I could talk about him for like hours, but that if you watch how they play like they first of all they lost to the Timberwolves in the first round. Let me get that straight. And second of all, their style of play is nowhere close to the level of the Spurs and Thunder defensively. They cannot keep up with them at all. And so I'm not afraid to say that I don't think Jokic is winning another ring with that team and
No.
with that roster. That's a fair take. Okay.
I would agree, and I would say that Jokic could even go to somewhere like,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe like Dallas. I mean, how insane would that be?
Oh,
Dallas
that'd
would
be
be
nice.
amazing.
I it's going to be a few years until we hear serious Jokic trade rumors, I think, but I wouldn't be surprised if he does not finish his career there.
Yeah,
At this point,
but yeah, I mean, so then, do you think that um, the dynasties are better?
right? Okay, so a couple things I would say. One thing that you mentioned that was really interesting is you when I was talking about how I don't think Wemby will get another ring because of the parity. You said there hasn't been a Wemby, and then I thought, wait a minute, is the reason why there has been so much parity as simple as this? LeBron's reign ended. That was it. And then you had no one else. It was LeBron and Curry, and then we had 8 years of guys coming in and exiting. And even though every year we've had some sort of conversation about a new dynasty starting, like in 2021, the Bucks with Giannis, 2023, the Nuggets with Jokic, 2024, the Celtics with the Jason and Jalen. uh, every time it's been unsuccessful. And now this time, this level of talent we haven't seen since peak LeBron on the Heat, right? And on the rise with that level of young core.
Right.
Um, that might just be the simple reason why or one of the reasons, obviously there's been others, why there's been so much parity and a lack of repetition. And that could be completely flipped. We don't have that star. So,
I think you've explained it perfectly. I
okay.
mean, I because before, even when my LeBron was in Miami, he won the two, but the Spurs won one. I guess that was kind of like the Warriors and the Cavs, and like it was kind of back and forth. But like it all involved LeBron, and as soon he's right, as soon as he went to LA, so much random stuff happened. AD was hurt. They won the ring in the bubble, right? Then AD gets hurt, and he's kind of iffy throughout the years. It's just kind of whatever. They don't really
Yeah.
make a huge run. LeBron misses the playoffs for the first time in whatever many years, and then the Luca trade happens, and then Luca's up and down. His ex-wife is like, I had something with I don't know what his drama is off the court. Like,
Yeah, and LeBron is past his prime, and so the entire like 2000s and 2010s, the West was pretty much always better than the East. But because of LeBron, you had those mini rivalries between the Spurs and Heat and then the Warriors and Cavs. And it was
Right.
literally just because LeBron made the finals every year from 2011 to 2018.
It's like he
Um,
willed himself there.
exactly, right? And so until you get another player with that kind of mentality and that kind of extremely well built team around them, like we're going to get with Wemby, I imagine, you aren't going to get that level of competition and like dynasty forming. And so I think that we probably are kind of on a crash course to the Spurs, like continuing to dominate. But I think that the Thunder are close, and I would rather lean on the side of like the Thunder and Spurs splitting them, like say in the next 5 years, like Spurs go 3-2 in making the finals, right, and the Thunder go the other two, than like the Spurs winning all five. And then in terms
Yeah.
of the East, there's no clear like open. Or it's clearly open, right? We talk about the East being weaker, and of course, like credit to the Knicks, for example. But there's still so many teams that are on the door of the Knicks, and clearly, like the distance between the Thunder and Spurs versus like the Timberwolves, right, is much bigger than the distance between the Knicks and then the Cavs or the Celtics or the Pistons or the Sixers or whatever. And
Even the
so,
Pacers when they get Hallie back, like there's
absolutely,
still
the Pacers
yeah.
will be back in the race as well starting next year. So, the question of is it good for the league? I think that I agree with you that it is good to see new types of basketball be played and new types of players get a chance on the biggest stage. Um, but I don't think it's necessarily a good or bad thing. I just think like good players like present themselves when they get the opportunity, and I think that caring about a like continuous storyline over multiple years does create more emotion among fans, and it can end up being quite exciting. So even if that rivalry ends up being in the conference, if it ends up being Spurs Thunder and the East team just keeps cycling through, we can still count that as like kind of an end to the parody, and I think that that will still be good. So.
Can I also add something to that? The the excitement of the NBA feels more contingent on having a protagonist like character to always be able to watch. Like I'm just thinking about that now, and this goes hand in hand with what we just said. But as soon as LeBron went to LA, he's clearly exited his physical prime, although he's still putting up incredible numbers. There was not a face of the league that would make people
Absolutely.
want to tune in. So even if, like, let's say Wemby wins this ring this year, right? And there's ups and downs. Maybe they don't win another ring for 4 or 5 years from now. Just the fact that there is a protagonist that is so clearly in love with the game of basketball means that there will be something for fans to always watch. And Giannis is not that person. Jokic is not that person. Unfortunately, the
Shea.
Jays, Shea is not that person. I could have seen Tatum becoming that person. I don't know if he is the same way that Wemby is.
No, and again, it's kind of has to do with that mentality and that like he's just literally liked by everyone. I don't know a guy who actually just likes Wemby, but Tatum has
Right.
not had that going for him, and so um, you're right about the face of the league. Thank you for reminding me because once LeBron post 2018 and like I would say that Steph kind of still had like his end of the bargain until they won the chip in 22. But like since then, firmly, like it's very clear that even though Jokic is the best player in the world for so many years, he wasn't something that people were like that random people were caring about the NBA for. And now you have
Right.
Wemby, and so now we're going to talk about the NBA differently. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a good time to be a basketball fan. We got to grow up with LeBron, and now we're entering our youth at the same time that Wemby's only 2 years older than you and me. That's inspiring. It's so cool.
It is, and it is also not inspiring to see Dylan Harper, who is younger than us, destroy grown men on an NBA floor and earn like millions of dollars. So,
You guys
uh,
don't want to see me and Ramsey's field goal percentage when we play pickup, bro. We're
yeah,
yeah,
let's not talk about that Chet Holmgren
yeah, yeah.
esque stat line. Um,
No, I think we're actually better than Chet and pickup. Honestly.
Oh my God, relax, bro. Honestly,
I mean it, bro. I mean it, bro.
all right.
Oxtail and cornbread fueling me the right way. Um,
Let
the NBA Finals.
Thank you. Let's begin with our talk about Spurs Knicks. Um, we won't do this for super long. Just want to do some quick preview. Today is Monday, so this episode should drop. I would say Wednesday morning, and hopefully you guys can listen around game one or game two. Spurs versus Knicks is a epic rematch of the 1999 Finals, where the Spurs won in five. That was the last time the Knicks made the finals. Of course, the Spurs have been mega successful since then, but the last time the Knicks won was in 1973. So it's been 53 years of the biggest fan base in the NBA starving. And there's almost no equivalent for this in other sports. There's some, but usually the biggest fan bases are for the richest teams who can spend the most money, right? And even though the Knicks have spent money on star players throughout time, they have always had an incompetent GM who's never been able to build a good roster. I mean, just thinking about guys like Carmelo, for example, um, and
Patrick Ewing.
going back, yes, Ewing and his Allen Houston and his other teammates were a very good roster, but they never got over the hump against these Spurs, for example. So I would say we already talked about this. This is probably the most exciting finals, excluding Celtics and Warriors finals. For us personally, it's probably the most exciting since Warriors Cavs.
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
again, we can count that. I would say the other finals that was the most interesting from a basketball standpoint was Bucks Suns, and that ended up being an incredible watch. But
because that could have gone either way, and
yeah,
it was so much fun.
But again, there was no significant storylines for sure in Bucks Suns. But now we have New York City versus the face of the league, right? It cannot get better than that. The biggest stage and the biggest player. So, and also, ironically, it's literally the team with the biggest player and the team with the smallest superstar. So we got Brunson versus Wemby. So it's a little David versus Goliath-esque of a 6'2" dude against a 7'5", 7'6" dude. Yeah, so I have here the previous matchups. They played 3 times this year, including the NBA Cup final. So shout out to Adam Silver, because you can hate Adam Silver all you want, but the NBA Cup worked. We have literally an exact replica of the finals, and Knicks fans are pointing to this game from December 16th where the Knicks won by 11 with full confidence. The one simple reaction I have to that is that Victor Wembanyama is not remotely the same as this Victor Wembanyama, especially that Dylan Harper and that Stephon Castle are not remotely the same. And so they should be a lot more afraid. Since then, the Spurs won by 2, and the Knicks then blew them out in March. And that was also a very significant win for them. So that was one of the only losses the Spurs had at the end of this, towards the end of the season, was that, and a loss against the Nuggets. But yeah, do you have any general thoughts before we start?
Looking into specifics, not really. Just that, like you already said, this Harper Stephon Castle combo is just so vicious and aggressive that I don't think that the Knicks are going to be really ready for it. I mean, they've had their rest. They probably had plenty of time to watch film and probably watch the games the same time as we were watching the game. But
right,
are they really? I mean, this is insane playoff rising that we've seen out of the Spurs. Keldon Johnson, Julian Champagnie, Luke Cornett. What happens when Cat's driving the ball down and Luke Cornett comes from behind and
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're just going to talk about this in 2 halves. First, let's talk about when the Spurs are on defense and the Knicks are on offense. Okay, so
right.
Obviously the Spurs are incredible on both ends of the ball, and the Knicks have, I believe, the best offense in the playoffs by a pretty significant margin. They literally breezed through the entire East, which people are now going to start calling an easy path. For the love of God, can we stop invalidating paths in the playoffs just because they were better than the other teams? That is how it works. And guess what? The Cavs had to beat the Pistons. So yeah, the Knicks never played the Pistons. And guess what? The Knicks never played the Celtics because the Sixers beat them. How hard is it to understand that? You literally always play the best team unless there's some sort of circumstance which would have caused an excuse anyway. And so we need to stop this narrative. It is literally the dumbest thing alive for people to complain about that all the time. Um, anyway, the Knicks are firmly the best team in the East and are really, really close to the Knicks. Sorry, the Spurs and Thunder in their recent play styles. Um, okay, so one note that I have here is about who will Wemby defend. There's really two options when you look at the starting lineup. The biggest and most obvious option is for him to defend Josh Hart, because when you put Wemby on a non-shooter, who Josh Hart is the only non-3-point shooter in the starting lineup, and admittedly, he's actually not that bad of a 3-point shooter, but he just doesn't shoot at the clip or like attempt rate as Mikhail, OG, Cat, and Brunson, right?
Right.
So if you put him on Hart, then Wemby is enabled to be more of a roamer, and he doesn't have to commit as much to like standing in the corner, of course. And that's what you want from Wemby. You want him to be able to move around the paint and pick up a guy on a drive, like a Brunson, for example. And
Right.
so just expect that. That's something that was noted in previous games, and that will give them more opportunities. The other instance is that he may get put on Cat. And Cat is interesting. In the event of like a switch, for example, Cat might want a smaller defender on him, or he might not. He might choose to uh, prefer a Wemby matchup because even though he may not necessarily be able to drive on Wemby that efficiently, although I'm sure he'll get many close shots like that, I think that he's going to have to rely on his shooting. One of the most important things in this series is can Cat be a good outside shooter? Because that will have to pull Wemby out of the paint enough. And at some point, if Cat starts making enough deep threes, then Wemby's out of the paint, and then you can fake a shot and initiate a better like look, like a Josh Hart cut baseline, for example. And
Or
so,
Brunson going to work down low.
right, exactly, or a setup for Bronson. And so, Cat also may need to be more of a playmaker in a circumstance like that, which we've seen out of him in this playoffs. That's really the type of role that Mike Brown has been able to tap into after us not knowing at all what Cat was this entire season.
Yeah.
And Cat is really doing extremely well. He fits right into this offense. And so I expect Wemby to be able to hold his own against this team, of course. But yeah, do you have any thoughts on that or on Wemby?
I just I don't know about this Wemby on Hart thing. Josh Hart, I just checked, is 6'5". Wemby's almost a foot taller than him. Now, obviously, I mean, on paper, that would probably lend itself to meaning that Wemby's going to be a great defender on Josh Hart in
Yeah.
terms of post up stuff like that. But at the same time, do we really think that Wemby's going to be able to keep up with Hart speed wise? If they're able to set picks and have Josh Hart come off of them around the 3-point line or maybe around the elbow area and use his speed and agility to kind of get Wemby moving and get Wemby tired, to me, that seems like it could be a cause for concern. But I also understand the other perspective of, well, if you try and put him on Cat outside, he's going to have to either start giving Cat some space to try and help defend the paint, which if Cat's shooting and he's on fire, we know he can shoot the three ball at an exceptionally high clip. Hang pulls from Trey ball, OD.
Right.
But if he's
Um,
guarding Cat, it's like I
yeah,
don't know.
it's
I don't think
it's
the Hart's the good defender to match up for him at all.
I I'm gonna lean towards that being their best option because I don't think that Hart's off-ball movement is as big of an issue as you might think. Mostly because Wemby is genuinely so big, and in 5 steps that Hart takes, Wemby can take two and still block it with his hand. And so, like, um,
Mm,
even if Hart is roaming around on like the side of the key, for example, um, Wemby doesn't necessarily ever have to commit to him. And you're right, we are going to see a lot of switches or picks potentially where Wemby might be forced to step up or make some sort of decision with does he have to like go with the roller. And in those plays, I think that if the Knicks supporting cast is shooting well enough from three, then Hart can become more of a roller on those PNRs, and then Wemby isn't going to be able to keep up with him because they won't be able to commit to both him and the shooter, and so that would make it harder. I would just say expect that to be the starting like matchup, and then we'll see where it goes from there.
For sure. You're
Uh,
right. That is the best option because otherwise you're just letting Cat shoot. So
right, and I don't think the other options are good either. So, like the other players, I was gonna say one of the most important things is for the Knicks to make their threes. Of course, was important for the Thunder, and they did this in a lot of games they won, but they couldn't in Game 7. But like in these playoffs, I have notes here. OG Anunoby is shooting 48% from three. 48. Mikhail is
that's
shooting
ridiculous.
34, which is like average for him. Landry Sham is shooting 60. Miles McBride is shooting 43. So basically, the entire Knicks team is shooting 40% from three. Um, Basically, one of the keys, of course, is Bridges and OG versus Champagny and Vassell. Very obviously, Bridges and OG are more talented players and they're much better defenders. I'd say in terms of shooting, it's kind of at the same across the board. It's like a wash. But are those guys going to be able to outplay each other? They're not defending each other. Like we'll get to this OG side, but like for example, he's going to probably have the Wemby task. So anyway, are we going to be able to? Who's going to make more threes between those pairs? I guess will be something important.
Right.
So
Right.
okay, yeah, I'll let you talk about this first. What do you hope to see about Stephon Castle having the assignment of Brunson, and how does this maybe compare to him successfully guarding Shea?
The first thing is Brunson's bag is very similar to Shea's, where it's a lot of mid range, it's a lot of drive and step back. In fact, a lot of people give Brunson a lot of slack online for kind of being a foul baiter and a flopper the same way that they accuse Shea of being.
Oh yeah,
So
he just has
I
a better PR team. I promise the difference between them is not as significant as people think. But yeah,
right. So that mentally and probably physically too is a benefit for Castle because he has to just continue to do what he's already been doing, which is cutting him off with his body, allowing Brunson to bump him, and but not completely take him off his spot. The only thing that would be maybe concerning is how agile Brunson is because how he's a little bit shorter, and I know that I've seen clips of Brunson driving, and it's just at a speed that's just like not quite the same as Shea's. Not that it's any knock on Shea. It just physically it's easier to be faster when you're smaller. Um, but besides
right.
that, I don't know if there's anything really majorly different about their games. Like they both can shoot the three ball, but they don't do it that often.
Yeah,
Um,
I
I
agree
think
with
Steph
you.
Castle's going to be fine.
I think Steph, this is favorable for him. He's bigger than Brunson and has a larger wingspan. And Brunson's advantage is that he's incredibly shifty, like you said, and he's very quick. And he may not take as many like fadeaway jumpers as Shea, but he will just take the correct step right and get off the foot that Castle might not be able to keep up with him. And there will be a bunch of plays where Brunson gets the job done, but I think overall he's just going to do everything he can to switch out of that because that's not a good look for Brunson at all. I don't think Harper is either. I think it's more likely that he starts trying to target somebody like Champagny or Vassell, and maybe Champagny because again Vassell is also a great defender. So it's very clear that there's no James Harden figure in this series for them to pick on, right? So
No traffic cones,
no
not at
traffic
all.
cones, right? And the other thing I have on this side of the ball is Mitchell Robinson's importance. When he's in the game, again, he has a broken pinky, but he's clearly going to play. You just got to tape it up. When he's in the game and he's against Wemby, there will be situations where he's guarding Wemby or Wemby has to guard him. Mitchell Robinson is the best offensive rebounder in the league. And so, how does Wemby adjust his game to avoid the Knicks getting second chance points? I'm not entirely sure. I think that Mitchell will get in his head a little bit. And I actually wouldn't be surprised if the Knicks rely more on double bigs with Mitch Rob and Cat. Because that would be more interesting, I think. Maybe instead of Hart, you have Robinson, and then the pressure on Wemby to stay in the paint because of Robinson's rebounding capabilities, and then you let Cat completely stay out and continue being like an offensive engine or taking threes. That might be the best chance they have at eliminating the like defense impact that Wemby has.
I was gonna say this sounds very eerily, not eerily, but it's very similar to how OKC intended on stopping Wemby, which is have a physical
Right.
big, a 7-footer that can really put his body on him. And I mean, if Chet shoots like you said, if Chet shoots more, if Chet had shot more and shot at a higher clip of these threes and these like if they just isolated Hardenstein in the paint and Chet wasn't so scared, there's a very good chance that we're talking about the Thunder playing the Knicks right now. And in that same vein, I mean, I have way more confidence in Cat to do what Chet couldn't do.
Absolutely. I agree. Cat is a much better offensive player than Chet. It's not even close. And then in defense, Chet is significantly better. I don't think the gap is as big. And if that defensive big man impact can be made up for with Robinson, and you have both of them on the floor at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if we see them finishing games. So
And to that point, real quick, just want to say, Josh Hart. That means that for the non-Wemby minutes, Josh Hart can come in maybe off the bench. Um, I mean, it's unlikely they'll start Mitch Rob, but I could see it happening because how effective would that be for Josh Hart to become the lockdown guy on the bench guys when he has to guard Dylan Harper or he has to guard Champagnie or even Carter Bryant or Keldon Johnson, like
yeah,
that sets him up to be a more effective defender and player based on his play style and his effect, like based on his height and his physicality.
well said. That makes complete sense. Yeah, I think it depends a lot on Robinson's health. So I hope that his pinky's okay. Like I hope
These
he can play through it.
non-basketball activities will get you, bro.
Yeah, no, and I hope it also doesn't affect his the Haka Robinson too much. I know it's going to be really bad, and you can better believe that Mitch Johnson is not a stupid guy, and he's going to plan from the very beginning. Like once we're in the third quarter and we have a lead, we are fouling Mitchell Robinson every second he's on the floor, and
We might be seeing some Bismack Biyombo gameplay to get some fouls on him.
yeah, you're right.
Seriously,
Put in Olynyk, bro, just for the kill or something, you know.
for
But
the
yeah.
Kel.
Oh. All right. Best of luck to
What should
Robinson.
I'm hoping for when you can have a perk. Oh, okay, all right. Tough crowd.
Nice try, bro. Windy day. Windy day. Um,
Windy day.
and then the other side of the floor, my notes aren't as interesting. When the Knicks are on defense and the Spurs are on offense, the Knicks have, to their credit, one of the best defenses in the playoffs, which is something that people probably wouldn't have seen coming from like the middle of the season, for example. And so it's really Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby and Josh Hart, who are three of the best wing defenders in the league. And they all make up this incredible unit that can take on basically people of any size. They can defend guards and bigs. Um, for example, like I think that kind of play style, their kind of play style is to force their opponents into a little bit more of a shooting contest. And I think in a situation like that, you might have like Fox and Champagnie doing well. But if you're relying on like Castle and Harper maybe to shoot more threes because the driving lane is a little too blocked for them, and like OG and Mikhail are two good defenders, then that might be a problem because we know that those young guards aren't as reliable, and of course, like the lights are going to be incredibly bright. Um, and it really does depend on Wemby, right? He's got to be the best player on the floor almost every game for the Spurs to win the games that they can. In terms of who he is going to like be defended by, I really think it would be OG because he's the most agile and switchable. He's huge and strong, and usually even if you put a smaller guy in Wemby because he's not as like uh, I don't
Buff.
know, buff or wide, like a guy like OG can take him. And then the other potential defender on Wemby is Mitchell Robinson. I think that's a I think personally that that's a bad matchup, but I saw information about it, so it could be like a do or die thing. I don't like it though.
I think that you're right about that. I mean, OG definitely the whole thing with the lower center of gravity for these guys that are buff and short. I mean, short relative to Wemby, of course, but like they they'll be able to bump him and get him off his spot enough that
Exactly.
hopefully that'll affect something. I do want to say though, Steph Castle and De'Aaron Fox and Dylan Harper all shoot the three at a pretty similar clip. They're all around 33, 34%.
Okay.
So maybe this is the series where Steph Castle takes a step in terms of shooting the ball. I mean, uh, we saw Dylan Harper hit a crazy step back, but that felt more like that's not really his game the same way that it is Champagny and Fox and maybe even Keldon Johnson, who knocked down a number
Yeah.
of great 3-pointers. But if they make it into a shootout and then it's because Wemby is dominating, like you said, it depends on Wemby. If he's able to get into the paint and draw doubles, if the Spurs shoot the way in general they shot against the Thunder,
Yeah,
they're
then
going to just
it's
dominate. It's
wraps
wraps. It's
easily.
wraps. Easily.
I think I was a little bit too nervous on behalf of Castle and Harper, just like playing in MSG in their first playoff series. Like, I don't think anybody would have a good shooting performance, but
And
uh,
ball security wise, too, for Steph Castle. I
yeah.
mean, Spike Lee yelling at you from, oof.
Yeah, I mean, that's why Fox is going to be critical in the series too to prevent those kind of turnovers.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and yeah, the general note I have here, of course, is that the Knicks are not as good of a defense as the Thunder. They don't play. They play with an intense pace in these playoffs. They've been very aggressive, but they're not at the level of intensity as the Thunder. And to be fair, the Thunder did not have the same historic defense that they had last postseason that won them the title. They just had a great one, like best in the league type one. But the Knicks are pretty close to them, but it's going to be the offense, the Knicks offense, that beats the Spurs, if anything. So, yeah, that's all I have for these notes. I will let you go first. What is your official pick, and in how many games?
I'm going to say that the San Antonio Spurs are going to win the 2026 NBA Finals. I don't think it'll be in 4 games, and I also don't think it's going to be in 5. I think they're going to win in 6.
Got it.
That
That
I could see 5 or 6. I don't think it's going to Game 7 though.
My take going in was to say Spurs in six. Uh, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think that the Knicks are going to take some games from them. Like, let's say, for example, the Spurs win both games at home. The Knicks take game three, and then they lose game four to go down 3-1. I think in a circumstance like that, though, in that picture that I'm painting, then I think the Spurs would do everything they can to win game five on their home court. So,
Because you do not want to
uh,
play Game 6 in MSG. That would be a
right.
train wreck.
So I'll lean for the sake of difference, Spurs in five, a repetition of 99. Um, but six is definitely a safe prediction too. And I've seen a
And I
lot of
won't
experts picking the Knicks too, so don't be shocked.
count them out. You know, I mean, I obviously this would be a lot to ask from the basketball gods because we got one of the best games ever in the first game of the Spurs and Thunder series, and honestly, the Game 7 was also incredible. Do how I'm trying to think of how iconic it would be for it to go to 7. I mean, it would just be so great.
Yeah, this series that would probably be the one of the most expensive NBA tickets of all time, and B the like one of the most viewed uh, Game Seven between the face of the league and the historic team.
Right.
I can't even fathom the level of stakes that would be on the line, and you could talk about the like impact that this could have on every player in the game. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'll agree with you. I don't think that the Spurs are letting it go to 7, but if the Knicks have some sort of master game plan that I'm not really aware of, like when we do another pod, I'm sure like a couple of games into the series, we might have a change of tune. So,
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
all right. Well, that is it for our NBA talk. So let's do a few minutes talking about the NFL trades of the day. Of course, like free agency and all these blockbuster deals have begun. It's the the start of the new NFL season, June 1st, and so multiple deals happened, including Odell Beckham Jr. going back to the Giants, which I'm sure is just dandy. Um,
And Juju Smith-Schuster joining him there. I remember there was a
oh,
time when that was like a back and forth thing.
right, exactly. Thank you for reminding me. Right. So there's really two important things. One much more important. So Rajan, you have the
I
floor,
have the
sir.
displeasure of talking about this now too because this affects my Seattle Seahawks. So, as a Seahawks fan, I believe Aaron Donald. I started watching Seattle football 2013, 2014, around then. Um, that was when I got into football, and that was, I believe, the year that uh, Aaron Donald was drafted into the NFL. And so the entire time that I've been a Seahawks fan, I've had to watch a top three defensive lineman of all time absolutely wreak havoc on every single quarterback we've ever had. From it was Russ, Sam Darnold, Geno Smith, Drew Lock, Aaron Donald. I mean, Drew Lock for one game. Aaron Donald has destroyed like any hope that I had for Seattle after winning that first Super Bowl because he is just so dominant. And then he retired after they won, and I thought, wow, we have a chance now. And we did. We actually won. Sadly, it wasn't in the United States for when it happened, so I couldn't crap talk Ramsey for it. But they won. And then I saw my phone today, and the single season sack leader just joined my rival team. This bodes terribly for the NFL in terms of any other team having a chance this year. I mean, the Rams were very, very, very close to winning the NFC Championship. They split or they won 1-1 with Seattle in the year, and both games were nail biters. Absolutely could have gone either way. Um, the Rams are the probably one of, if not the best coached and most iconic coached teams in the league. The McVay tree is all over the league. It's just successful because they're so well disciplined in every facet of the game. And now you're taking this offense that has Puka Nacua, who literally went ballistic towards the end of the season. Matthew Stafford is still playing and still healthy. They have a top 5 offensive line. And you just tell me they're adding like the best defensive player in the world. And he's in his prime. He's 30 years old. And he is one of the people that like takes the most care of his body. I've watched some of the videos that Myles Garrett and the Browns have posted on YouTube detailing his crazy recovery processes, all the people that he hires to make sure he has good food and good sleep and good biomechanics for all this stuff. I mean, the dude is like LeBron in terms of taking care of his health. And he's not exactly playing an impact level position like running back where he's getting hit often. Obviously, there's a lot of physical strain being a defensive lineman, but it's not the same as someone being a wide receiver who's getting hit or blindsided, or even a linebacker who's delivering those hits. It's not like he's going to be ending the league or leaving the league anytime soon. This is very scary. I think undoubtedly the Rams have to be the favorites to win the NFL, or the Super Bowl next year, and it's not. I mean, I have no doubt that they're going to get at least 13 wins. It's genuinely scary when someone who just set a record joined an already juggernaut team. Ramsey made a great allusion, or not allusion, allegory. I don't know, one of those language arts terms. Um, like explaining this in NBA terms. This is like how in Ramsey's words, if Giannis went to this year's Oklahoma City Thunder, it's that level of blockbuster. So that's my rant.
Right.
I'm very not excited for this year. I can't not wait to do guess the lines where we guess that the Rams are going to win 16 games.
And you mentioned that the Rams' schedule is much easier than their team deserves, right?
Why don't Ramsey? Why don't I just tell you their schedule? Why don't I just tell you their schedule? I'll just tell you. You know what? I'll be a nice guy. I'll tell you the schedule.
Okay. And
Boom.
yeah, by the way, Aaron Donald was drafted and played his season 2014 rookie year. So
So my entire life as a Seahawks fan has been dominated by him beating up on my team. Okay. Week 1, San Francisco 49ers. Obviously, that could go either way. San Francisco's a pretty good team, but with Aaron Donald, Myles Garrett,
ha,
that's terrible. And actually, I bring up Aaron Donald because he's only 35, and if you've seen his social media, the guy is still working out.
That was my next question when you talked about staying in shape. I actually thought you were talking about Donald for a second, and I was going to bring up the very trendy topic of like, does this mean Aaron's coming out of retirement, one last ride, get Stafford the ring, and then everybody rides off into the sunset? Is that possible?
It is the worst part is that it's possible because Aaron Donald has never been someone that's about the money. He's always been about the love of the game. That's why he retired after only 10 years. He said he gave the game everything he had, and that his career is complete now. But this is like right.
He has nothing left to
He's right.
prove. He's one of the greatest of all time. But like, can you?
This is like if Tim Duncan was at the end of his career and LeBron joined the Spurs. That would be like, it's like, come on, you have to do it.
I know it's very exciting. What
So
other
even if they
highlights
even
from there? Sorry.
prospectively, I'm just gonna go through the record real quick.
Yeah,
The Niners, then they play the Giants, then
two
they
and zero.
play at Denver. Again, Denver is great, but I don't really know if they can contain this. I mean, I think Bo Nix is going to get destroyed. I think that was one of the
Yeah,
complaints with Denver is that their offensive line wasn't that great.
exactly. I'll go 3-0.
Then they play at the Philadelphia Eagles. I
Up in well,
would
we have something to talk about for them too as well, but I'll say 4 and
right.
0. They're still much better
I'll say
than them.
4-0 too because they don't have the same receiving power. Even if we can argue that A.J. Brown was
I mean,
good or
to be
bad,
fair, the Eagles' offensive line has always been their strongest,
it's true.
element. But in recent years, since the Super Bowl, it's kind of died off. And so with Garrett, I don't.
Unfortunately, too, the Rams don't have a bad secondary. They have a great secondary. They're still stacked.
Right.
Then they play the Bills. That could be a wishy-washy game because
Wow,
Josh Allen is.
we got to watch that game. Oh my God, that sounds
Yeah,
amazing.
that's Monday Night Football in October. That's probably as peak as it gets. We're
Okay,
gonna watch that in our apartment.
let's go.
But that notably is in SoFi, so that
Okay.
could. And then they play the Cardinals, the Raiders, the Chargers, who were kind of iffy this year. I mean, we expected them to make quite a jump from last year, and they didn't really. Then they play at the Commanders, at Arizona. They have the Packers, the Chiefs, the Niners, the Cowboys, Seattle, Tampa, and Seattle. So they close their season
Wow.
with Seattle. 2 games in
Well,
3 weeks.
despite the 16 and 18 in Seattle, it sounds like the back half of their season is way easier than the front half. Uh,
And we
like,
already had them at 4-0.
yeah, I know. So I would say my prediction is like 15 and 2 because they might drop some game against like the Eagles or Chargers or God knows what, but or the
And
Commanders.
and
Uh,
and
uh,
that
uh, uh. that
we're
that
still the defending champs. We're still the defending champs.
that like a 38-37 game from this past year, Thursday Night Football was one of the greatest games I've ever seen.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I hope we get
That
something
was
like that again. But
so. All this to say, the Rams are in a great position, and I do think that this will be their kind of last hurrah. Like Stafford is getting older. I'm sure that they'll. I don't want to say I'm sure. I'm guessing that they'll win this year, and that'll be it for him. Maybe they make a trade for somebody, some other quarterback, to still give Garrett a chance at a ring while he's at this age. But to me, this seems like the last maybe 2 years of his dynasty and his career.
presumably that quarterback is Ty Simpson, who they drafted out of Alabama and who has very mixed reactions. And obviously the thought was, why would you draft a QB if you want to compete for a ring? So now it's like, okay, they're doing that. They're doing the two timelines thing like the Warriors. Like they're trying to. Obviously, Garrett is going to outlast Stafford. I agree with you. And so you do need a quarterback ready to continue. Um, I don't know if he'll be the guy. They might end up changing their opinion anyway.
But for all we know, he could end up being like an Aaron Rodgers and Jordan Love
Sure.
situation. So
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. That'd be best case scenario.
no. I hope not. I hope this does not
You're
work.
right. I
This
don't
is-
want this either. The thing I would mention, I saw an interesting comp. I don't know if I would be as optimistic as you about Myles Garrett having a good 5 years left. Just because I think when you look at like some of the history regarding like defensive ends once they're in their
That's a
30s,
good point.
like it doesn't last as long as you might think. Like a good comp that I saw was J.J. Watt, who, of course, in 2015 probably should have been the MVP, right? But he was like the defensive player of the year,
Right.
or that might have been 14. But in those 2 years, he won defensive player of the year, and he was 25 and 26, and he was also All Pro when he was 29. But he turned 30 and he only played 8 games. In his year when he was 32, he only played 7. And all of those years, he wasn't even a Pro Bowler, and he was just a
Mhm.
serviceable player towards the end. And there are more examples of DEs like him. And so I say all of that, and yet when you look at Garrett's history, of course, he's made 3 straight All Pros, and he has 2 DPOYs. And his peak is clearly just later in his life than it was for Watt. like winning DPOY at 30 almost never happens among defensive players, and so unless of course you're Aaron Donald who won it at 29, right? And so hopefully his trajectory is more like Donald's. That is to say, does he retire early like Donald? Hopefully not for the Rams' sake. But if this is all to win one ring, it's a success, and people need to get over that. Like, it's if you buy in to win a ring and you do it, regardless of your future, you won because the end goal
Right.
is always to win a ring. So let's relax. It's the same
I
thing for
also
when the
want to say, oh
Lakers
yeah,
like won the
yeah,
title in the bubble and then they fell off. They won the title. So screw you. Go ahead.
yeah. I was gonna just say, also, Myles Garrett has only missed 2 games since 2021. He has never ever been injury prone, and that is a scary thought for the league because I don't see that changing. Maybe this is a good point that he only has a couple of years left, but even still, that means it's all the more imperative. And maybe that's why the Rams went for him because they're like, well, this guy is an all. I mean, the best defensive player in the league. He has maybe 2 or 3 years left if they're kind of lining up with what you're saying. Stafford's kind of in the same camp as a quarterback. Let's get them together and see what we can do. I feel terrible for Jared Verse because I thought he was going to be the next leader. I mean, he was the next leader of that team, but unfortunately, as they say, it is a business, and the organization had to do what they had to do. I mean, obviously, I feel terrible for the guy, but they have to do what they have to do to win and compete.
Absolutely. Yeah. Looks like Garrett's got plenty more years left in his contract. I think like 5. So he'll
Damn.
still be making a lot. And yeah, Verse was incredible for them. It's a great haul for the Browns. Honestly, you can't really fault them. Like that's a really
Right.
great package. Do you think I saw somebody say that? Do you think that Garrett is the best player in the NFL right now compared to his position?
Wait, like for defensive linemen or for overall everyone?
No, like obviously he is, but like the best in the NFL, like the most valuable at his position, more than any other position.
Yes. I think the only person that can come close is Josh Allen.
Right, that's a good pick.
I mean, but besides him, Myles Garrett is literally the most insane game wrecker off the edge that we've seen. And I know it sounds funny to say since JJ Watt. It's not like JJ Watt was that long ago, but they both have this insane way of completely altering a game. And I think that Josh Allen has been on a contender team for so many years of his career. I can't fault him. Obviously, he's not had the best supporting cast, but Myles Garrett has never even had a great team. I almost and they made the playoffs with him on that team. Like I almost feel like there's a chance that he comes in and just instantly wins, and we're just like, okay, this guy might be the best player, period, in the league.
Right
It's not crazy to say that. It's not ridiculous.
there, you go. All right, thank you for that. And then just quickly, let's touch on the A.J. Brown deal. Of course, Eagles wide receiver heads over to my team, the Patriots, in exchange for a 5th-round pick next year and a 1st-round pick the following year. So, of course, that's pretty pricey, but I imagine the Patriots are extending their window and they're hoping and that they are very competitive for not only this next Super Bowl, but the 28 one might be more of their focus. Uh,
Hmm.
AJ Brown, 31 years old. From the Eagles' perspective, this just makes a lot of sense. You get financial flexibility. You move off a guy who wasn't really even involved in your offense this year.
Yeah.
And they also drafted Makai Lemon out of USC, who was some people's best wide receiver prospect. So it's like just makes plenty of sense. You rely more on Devontae and now Makai, right? Um,
Yep. Yep.
and I don't really care about the Eagles first of all, but second of all, I think they'll be just fine without him if Hurts in the O line or like whatever they are. Um,
I forget. They have one of the best running backs in the league. Saquon is still Saquon.
yeah,
That has to be the focus.
thank you.
Clearly.
I didn't write him down, but yeah, that's the main selling point. So the Eagles will be a playoff team. I'm not really worried about that. I I don't see them on the level of the Rams, of course. But yeah. Meanwhile, the Patriots, of course, this perspective is more important. The Pats definitely needed him. I mean, watching that Super Bowl, Drake May is a superstar, right? But he doesn't really have, again, like that level of talent. And so the Patriots definitely don't want a Josh Allen type of situation where you have like kind of lackluster stars surrounding him. And trust me, I do not think A.J. Brown is like a blue chipper or like a franchise cornerstone by any means. I think that he is our wide receiver one, and now that's very exciting and all. I'm obviously optimistic, but I'm not like gonna lie to myself and say that this is like dramatically changing the team's future. I think our wide receiver depth is good. You got Brown, Romeo Dobbs, Kayshawn Booty, Mac Hollins. But again, like I think that all of those guys are good, especially for how they're paid, and I think that they will improve this season for sure. But I'm not going to speak like super positively or try to sugarcoat it. Like it's a good but not excellent depth.
I was
Um,
gonna say I feel like this is like a not like a filler trade, but like this can be a guy who's a serviceable wide receiver one who hopefully will get over his hump of not being aggressive and not being flowy in the offense in like he was in Philly. Um,
right.
but if he's able to do that, then I think that what it'll come down to is getting more talent um, for Drake May at the running back position, which they already have. Trayvon Henderson is great.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
uh, I think that that has to be the focus, and maybe hopefully Will Campbell is not going to be playing like an Amazon worker, as he put it.
Yeah, we need a lot more from the O line, much more than anything. And then
I feel like
the defense
consistently
is
a
still
theme.
excellent. So
Right. Exactly. That's the thing. The defense is still great. And I think consistently in the NFL, we see that when teams don't have a good rushing attack and their wide receivers are mediocre, that ends up being worse for them than when the rushing attack is mediocre and the receivers are not as great as the rushing attack. Because when you have a good running game, everything starts on the ground. You are able to build chunk yardage and force defenses to collapse inward and play coverages that collapse inward. And that, even if it's a not great wide receiver, if he or I almost said he or she, if he's open on the in the flats in this in the in breaking and out breaking short routes, that even if they're not a great receiver, they're still going to be able to make the plays more consistently than a bad running back with a bad offensive line. That's just never going to go anywhere in today's league. Defensive linemen and linebackers are just too athletic. Um, but that's where my head is at. So I think Patriots, if they can improve the offensive line and make that the focal point, then A.J. Brown having kind of an iffy end of his time in Philly is almost a moot point, or renders his point moot, um,
ha,
uh, because he's just going to be serviceable. So
I think
hopefully that's what happens.
I think he'll be great. I agree with you. I definitely agree that like one of the biggest handcuffs you can put on your team is overpaying for a receiver who's not worth the money, especially
Right.
multiple. Shout out to the Bengals. Uh, but I do have notes. Of course, the one great thing is that AJ played on the Titans under Mike Vrabel, and so if somebody can help handle AJ's ego of like reading a book on the sidelines, trying to be tough, it's Mike Vrabel, who, by the way, I guess I don't even know if he'll be the coach, but I really hope he is, and I hope that none of that affects our next season. Shout out to the person who visited your sports journalism class
And
for.
shout out to Mike Jr.
Oh God. Anyway, interesting stat though. With the Titans, AJ Brown's about 34% of his receiving yards were on play action calls, right, or play action catches, and specifically, he had 1,005 receiving yards over a 3 yard span on play action throws. No other receiver had even close to that. Like no other receiver had more than 680. So again, that was the kind of impact that AJ had when he was on the Titans. He was in those kind of plays and spur of the moment type of stuff with the quarterback. Under the Eagles, that fell to 13%. He became more reliable as like a
Mm.
guy who did man on man right in these plays against better defenses with better corners. But anyway,
And
guess who?
that oh yeah, sorry. I was
I was
gonna say
about to
like
say
real
real
quick.
quick. Guess who posted the best QBR in the league throwing play action under center last season? Drake May.
Drake May.
Of course, like the eye test proves that Drake May was one of the smartest quarterbacks in the moment, and was one of the highest IQ players, despite how young he is. And so I'm confident that Brown is going to see a lot more of those plays and hopefully like more efficient targets. And obviously, he's an older guy, but I think he'll be a good fit, especially for the culture and
Agreed.
everything.
And if they can get the running game going at a high, again, play action is completely reliant on the running game because the whole action of the play is faking a run and then creating some kind of bootleg for the quarterback to get out and run, use his legs, um, using deception. So, and again, the reason that it worked so well in Tennessee is because they had the king, Derrick Henry, as their decoy almost because he's so dominant that you have to give up something. You have to play more defenders in the box rather than getting them out wide. So if the Pats can do that and get the play action thing, like you said, maybe the Rams only win the Super Bowl by 30 instead of 50. Maybe. We'll
Yeah,
see.
I wouldn't pick the Pats for the Super Bowl this year at all, but I hope we get a chance. Also, I think I said earlier that A.J. Brown was 31. That seemed wrong to me, so I looked it up. He is 28. He'll be 29 during the season. So my bad.
He
Again,
has time then.
he's still on the older side, but he's definitely not as old as people think.
No,
And he has several more good years, hopefully being the Pats' number one option. I'm sure we'll draft receivers further as well. So
absolutely. Should be a good NFL year. I'm excited.
it should be. We'll do more pods after the NBA Finals, doing some more NFL predictions. It'll be fun, and we'll definitely be back the Dagger to cover more of the finals. Hopefully, we can try to do a live pod at some point. Um, but Knicks versus Spurs is going to be electric, and we'll be taking notes and coming on to discuss. It's going to be fun, Raj, and thank you for
Oh yeah.
hopping on with me.
Of course, my king. Always a pleasure.
All right, thank you everybody for listening. Have a great day. I'll see you next time.